Okay, so I'm Stephanie Kraft, and I'm here today with Lucy Pook. Hi, Lucy.
Hi Stephanie, how are you doing
Hi.
today?
Good. So the reason that we decided to make this video is because Lucy has a wealth of information about nutrition, and I really wanted to hear about everything that she knows, and I thought that it would be good for everybody else to hear because I have been following Lucy on Facebook for a little while, reading her posts on nutrition, and I find it fascinating, and I can tell that you know a lot. So why don't you begin by why don't we do this? I'd like you to tell people where they can find you and everything like that now, and then let's do that again at the end so that
Okay,
people can catch that information. So why don't you introduce yourself and say where they can find you and what you do, what your profession is, what you do for work, how you help people. And then after that, I would love for you to share with us some of the most important things about nutrition that you think we should know.
great. Okay, thank you Stephanie. Well, my name is Lucy Pook, but I'm also known as Lucy DeAngelis on social media because I don't really like my name, but I need to do something about that. But you can also find me on, I have a house page on Facebook called Lucy's Natural Born Healing. I also have a website, www.naturalbornhealer.co.uk. So basically, I am a naturopath. I've been one for 20 years. I trained with someone pretty amazing, somebody called Barbara Wren. She wrote a book called Cellular Awakening.
Barbara, what?
Barbara Wren. She's
Okay, I
written,
just wanted to make sure we could hear that because there was a
yeah,
little bit of a
yeah.
lag.
Yes, so her book's called Cellular Awakening. She's a British nutritionist. She's been teaching nutrition for about 30 years or more. And she was originally a nurse who didn't like what she saw happening in the British NHS. And so she started looking into alternative ways of health. And she studied Chinese medicine, homeopathy. Um, she was a colonic hydrotherapist, but she realized that nothing would work without nutrition. So she brought it all together, but she also realized we weren't separate from nature, so that she connected us to the fact that we are part of nature. So she connected the seasons, the equinoxes, the moon cycles, because basically we're 70% water, so we get affected by the effects of the moon. Just like the moon pulls water back and forth by the tides, the same happens to us, especially around new moons and full moons. It's a new moon. Oh no, it was a new moon yesterday in Britain. But the thing is, these have an effect on us, and we're not separate. We're not separate entities from nature, and we get affected. And this is why, my healing involves looking at the body holistically, looking at the whole system, um, seasonally, holistically, looking at the mind, the emotions, and how we are affected by universal energies, basically. So, for example, we all know around a full moon that people get moody, things start to happen, people have healing crises, and there's actually a reason why that is, and that is because we get a pull on the cells from the universal energies from the moon, pulling out rubbish from our cells, which then goes into the lymph, causes a drop in blood sugar, and causes a reaching out for the latest drug, your coffee, your tea, your alcohol, whatever you need, or a sugar hit, just to rebalance our blood sugar again. So when you see these connections, it gets very interesting because you can, for example, when I'm treating clients, I can work out what's going on in their body, and also connecting back to utilizing things like Chinese medicine, which also connects to seasons. So, for example, we're now in autumn, which in Chinese medicine is connected to the season of, the metal element, and the metal element governs the colon, and it governs the emotion grief. And so it's very interesting that in this time of year, I get clients who are suffering from colon problems. And when I am treating them and asking them questions, I can pick up there's some element of grief that they're holding on to that they need to look at and release, and then they can move forward with their healing. Not just about diet.
That is so interesting. I love it. That's always been very interesting to me to know, to bring in the other elements, the moon, and how that's affecting us, the elements, the water. And I like how you bring it together with nutrition.
Mm.
Yeah. So you're a naturopath.
Yes.
And you can see clients over the phone, Skype, in person, all of that, right?
That's right, yeah.
And what's your website again?
It's www.naturalbornhealer.co.uk.
Okay. And do you work internationally?
Yes, I can work internationally. Yes.
Okay, great. So what do you think are some of the most important things that you think people should know about nutrition?
I think the trouble with modern nutrition is it's become very allopathic, which means that it's the opposite of holistic. So it's about the latest superfood, the latest supplement, yeah? But the body is an interesting machine, and it doesn't work in the way that a lot of modern healers think, because we need water. The body needs plenty of water in order to function, and we are 70% water. So my work involves working in layers. So it's a bit like laying a foundation for a house. You know, if you're sending a client away and just saying, take this supplement, take that food, take that supplement, without hydrating them, their system's not going to absorb vital nutrients. And this all goes back to stress. So what we were taught by Barbara is that stress affects hydration in the body. So when we're talking about stress, we're talking about emotional stress, environmental stress, stress from a challenging diet. And stress causes the body to lose water. And when the liver senses that we don't have enough water in the system, that we're overstressed and not providing enough water, it creates cholesterol. And then what it does with that cholesterol is it starts to apply it around every single one of our cells to protect the water levels inside the cells. Because if we lose that water, we would die. And so over a lifetime, as more and more stress, more and more dehydration, more and more problems from a challenging diet, like too much alcohol, coffee, more and more cholesterol gets created as a protective mechanism. We believe that the body is always working for you, not against. So what it's doing, the liver is trying to protect the water levels. So it's creating that cholesterol to protect you, yeah? So what happens is that as we age, as more and more cholesterol is created, it means that the vital electrolytes and nutrients that the cell needs it's harder for them to be absorbed into the cell and for waste to be excreted. And it all goes back to the cell. It all goes back to cellular nutrition, making sure that you are where we are, what we eat, what we absorb, and what we excrete, basically. So if I was to send a client away and not look at her hydration, you could give them all the most amazing superfoods and supplements in the world, but they wouldn't be absorbing them. Now, the great thing is that as soon as you start hydrating a client and removing stress, the liver will take away that cholesterol around the cell. It will go back to the liver to be recycled, because the liver will sense that the body is hydrated. And what I mean by removing stress, because we can't always remove environmental stress, but we can. Our first way of taking our power back is our diet. So we can remove stressful foods such as gluten, yeah? And then when the liver senses that stress is being removed and we're starting to drink more water and hydrate, the liver will sense, the liver, which is always working for us, will remove that cholesterol and recycle it. Then we can start absorbing. This is what it's about, laying the foundations. Getting people hydrated first.
And how do you help people get hydrated? What are the best ways to hydrate the body?
Okay, so what people get confused about is that it's not just about water. So we can drink all the water in the world and not be hydrated. Yeah. Now, like a plant, when you water a plant, because water gives us energy basically. So we're like, a bit like plants. We start to droop. Yeah. But when we drink water, we start to get energized again. But the thing about a plant is it has its own natural oils already. We need to get the oils, such as the essential fats, also into the body. They're called essential because the body can't make them. So that's why they're essential. You need to get the essential fats back into the body to help rebuild the cellular membrane, which allows the water to move in and out.
And tell everybody what the essential fats are.
So the essential fats are omega-3 and omega-6. And when I used to mention those about 20 years ago, nobody had heard of them. But now it's amazing, everyone's heard of them. Yeah. They are essential. We can't make them. They have to come from an outside source. They have to be raw. As soon as we heat them, they become a damaged fat. So, for example, margarine. So, for example, sunflower margarine is omega-6. Yeah, in its pure raw form, that's fine. But in order to make, so for example, sunflower is a seed, which is omega-6. But as soon as that seed is processed and heated, degummed, deodorized, ending up being dyed yellow, it becomes a heated, damaged trans fat. And this is in all our processed food. It's called hydrogenated vegetable oil, or it's also called something new in order to distract us from what it really is. And I think it's called something diglycerized. I forgot the name now. But that's in all processed food. So it's in bread, biscuits, cakes. So you're eating this food full of these damaged fats, modern Western man is, which also blocks the uptake of the essential fats. So in order to remove stress, we have to get rid of the processed foods, the damaged fats, put in the healthy fats, get in the water. Then the body will start, the cells will start being quenched, and then you're on your way.
And tell everybody which foods they should be eating to get the omega-3s and the omega-6s.
Okay, this is where it becomes a problem because of specialized diets and people wanting to eat a certain way. And my teacher always taught me, need not greed. Yeah. The most bioavailable, absorbable form of omega-3, which is nature's Prozac, which helps to create serotonin in the body, because these oils, as well as hydrating us, also support the endocrine system. And they help create prostaglandins, which are hormone-like substances that feed the endocrine. And the trouble is, like, for example, a lot of people think, well, you get omega-3 in chia seeds, you get omega-3 in linseed oil, just take those. But the trouble is the liver has to break them down about 10 times before they become a prostaglandin and before they're utilized by the liver. Whereas the fish oil has already been broken down. So the liver doesn't have to do much with it. And the trouble is modern livers aren't working as well as they should. Modern livers have become too fatty. They're full of cholesterol. So, for example, somebody can start taking oil, it will start repeating on them. That's because the liver is not breaking it down. So once people start hydrating more, the liver senses that water is going into the body, and then you start giving them the broken down version of omega-3, the fish oil, that the liver doesn't have to do much with. You know, after a year or so of that, you can move on to linseed oil. But back to the need not greed, with modern, you've got to treat people where they're at. And for modern clients, you know, modern livers, because we're dealing with so much toxicity, so much stress, they're only working half as well as they would have done, say, you know, at the time of our grandparents. And so, for example, somebody who wasn't breastfed, for example, me, who was brought up on pasteurized milk, you know, who's lactose intolerant. I came into this life with a great deal of stress. So my liver wasn't working as well as it should. And this is the case. This is what I see with clients, that we've got to get people's livers working better. And the first way of doing that is getting the oils in, the fish oil, which is the most important, evening primrose oil, again, a broken down form of omega-6. And then the liver can start working properly. And then you take lemon, hot lemon, because lemon, what does lemon do? It breaks down fat, it breaks down a fatty liver.
Good. I use salmon roe
Lovely.
to get omega-3s, just a spoonful, not even every day, but just once in a while, because I know it's giving me my omega-3s. I do very well with that. It's expensive, so not everybody can do that, but
Yeah.
you're not taking a lot at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels very bioavailable.
The thing is, our ancestors would have got their omega-3 from raw milk. Yeah. The Japanese get it from raw fish. That's why the Japanese have much healthier constitutions, and their skin is amazing as well, because water and oil is also our internal moisturizer. Yeah. So imagine a plum, take away the water, you get a prune. It's the same with our bodies. Oils and water internally plump up our skin. So yeah, and the, you know, my grandparents would have been force fed cod liver oil at school, but we don't recommend cod liver oil anymore because of what's happened with the sea. The sea has become so polluted, so we have to find really good sources of whole body deep sea fish oil. And I get mine from a source where they use sardines and anchovies, because the smaller the fish, the less mercury there is.
Right.
Yeah.
Lately I've seen some people having cod liver, not cod liver oil, but just they have cans of just cod liver. Do you think that's like a clean source? And do you think that probably has omega-3, right?
Yes, and it would have vitamin D as well. But the trouble is, the liver in any body, whether it's animal or human, is going to have, it's where toxins will be stored, because the liver is a detoxification organ. So as long as it's from a good source, that's okay. It's just sourcing it.
Yeah. I just asked the people. Yeah, I've not seen it in the stores, but I asked where they got it and they said Amazon. So I don't know. I haven't looked it up. I don't know which country that is coming from, but
so as long as these fish are sourced, say, more in Alaska, Greenland, you know, around those areas, but not Fukushima area, not the Pacific.
Right.
And it's a shame. It's almost like it's an agenda that our seas are so poisoned, because this oil is so vital for us.
Yeah.
And it's actually brain food. It feeds the brain. It's actually the membrane is where each cell connects to the other cell, so it creates connectivity. It helps the neurotransmitters connect in the brain.
Yes.
It also grounds people. It's the most grounding oil you can have. Yes, it helps people, and this is where I get a little bit cross. And I'm sorry, vegans, but I get cross with the vegan agenda, because you know, you get so many people who are not getting these oils, and then they're taking antidepressants, which are tested on animals. So we've got to find a way of, you know, again, going back to need, not greed. This is about a need, because humanity is going through the long dark night of the soul regarding depression, and it's frustrating to see, because, you know, it's fish oils that should be sold on street corners, you know, because I've just seen miracles happen when people take them. Just, you know, even my daughter has been taking them for many years, and sometimes she would go away and not take them, and within 5 days she would notice her depression return. So many people, so many testimonials from taking deep sea fish oils. They are absolutely vital.
Yes, I would agree. So on that note, um, let's talk about that what vital nutrients humans need, where we get them, and can we get them? I know the answer to this, but can vegans get essential nutrients in an all plant, no animal diet? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
So it's interesting because I was a vegetarian at 17. I'm 55 now, but I was a vegetarian at 17, I think for about 20 years. I know when I was pregnant at 18, I did try some chicken. I was craving it. But when I trained with Barbara Wren 20 years ago, she, again, I'm going to say those words. She wasn't anti-meat. She would say, like, for example, if you're anemic, if you have some organ meat, your iron will go up within 24 hours, etc., etc. And I started introducing fish, and I love my eggs. I always resonated with yogurt as well. I'm lactose intolerant, but I can have yogurt till the cows come home because the probiotics alter the structure of the milk and make it bioavailable. But I didn't want to eat red meat, and I kept avoiding trying to eat red meat, even though sometimes my iron would be really low. And so when I went to see Victoria Potenko in 2006, she kept saying, she wrote a book, which I've given away now because I don't need it anymore, about greens, about how amazing greens are, that they contain every nutrient we need. And they contain amino acids in their free form. And I just thought it's got to be about greens. And I was promoting greens for so many years, thinking they're the answer. We don't need to eat meat. We can get them from greens. But then I would get the odd comment from students and clients saying, well, what about oxalic acid? Or what about phytates? Or what about goitrogens? And what about, and I would say, well, I think cultures have learned to work with greens. So, for example, lemon breaks down oxalic acid, apparently. And so I thought, well, maybe traditional cultures, when they make the salad dressing, that was why they created it, in order to break down the oxalic acid. But for some reason, I never resonated with spinach. I never resonated with spinach or kale. But I resonated with watercress, and watercress, interestingly, sorry. Watercress is naturally more wild, and then I kept hearing things like from Dr. Sebi, who kept mentioning hybridized foods, and then David Wolf would mention kinetic foods that are wild, and I always resonated with eating wildly. And I would, especially this time of year, I go and pick wild foods. But then when I was picking like greens and stuff, I noticed how bitter they are, and I kept thinking, well, how can you live on all these bitter greens? They're not exactly tasty. They're wild. And then I discovered Dr. Vonderplanet, and everything he said resonated, because also I had been studying Western Price, and I would tell my students about the tribes and about their diets, and how they all have everything very similar, which was everything was seasonal, organic. They ate fermented foods, they ate raw foods, they ate soured milk, raw honey, maple syrup, blah, 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 blah. So I'd always mention him and his studies and his amazing book. But then Vonderplanet just was like the final dot and the final crossing of the T, because I've always resonated with raw foods. And then when I heard his story, have you heard of Vonderplanet?
I only recently found out about him and watched a couple videos. Yeah. I really don't know what he teaches, so I'm a newbie.
Well, his story was fascinating because he would hang out with the tribes, and they kept saying to him, eat meat, eat meat, eat meat. And he had been a vegetarian, he'd been a fruitarian, he'd been a vegan, he'd been very ill, he got better, got worse, got better, got worse. It's a very interesting story. I suggest people check him out. I don't want to tell his story now, it's quite a long-winded one, but it's a very interesting story. And eventually he wanted to die, and he something miraculous happened where he ended up eating meat and he got better. And it was like, well, if this is the food that the tribes eat, that the indigenous people eat, and they're thriving, and the people who live on the side of mountains eat, who are not living next to a concrete supermarket selling hummus in plastic, surely this is the answer. Surely this is, our true food. And he when he discovered me, he ended up going to a local farm because he's literally dying, and he said, "Can I work for free?" Because he had no money. "Can I work for free? And can I just live on meat and raw milk?" And within 6 months, he was like Arnie. So his story finally connected all the dots, and then discovering that there's too many anti-nutrients in greens, and I was going through the menopause. I wasn't thriving. I was doing okay, but I wasn't thriving. Like, people would say, "Oh, you look well. Every time I go out, you look well." I didn't feel like I was thriving, and I just thought, no, this is the way forward, to eat locally, sustainably, and funnily enough, at that time, I kept meeting people, and other people kept adding me to like these sites, like, and other nutritionists were on there who had also followed, my path. So I was getting all these synchronicities and connections to the carnivore, paleo, keto way of eating. And then the pill on the magic pill again confirms it again. The people thriving on fats, thriving on protein, the most bioavailable form of proteins, the most bioavailable form of fats, and how fats have been demonized. Fats became a dirty word. We weren't allowed to eat fat. It was all about carbs and sugar. And yet it's fat that, we're made of fat, protein, calcium, and water, basically. We need to put those back. And I feel, and I've always felt this, that a lot of people doing the vegan diets, the vegetarian diets, are, in a sense, detoxing their bodies from pasteurized dairy, factory farm meat. And I think that's great. But I don't think you can rebuild your body on vegan foods. People have tried it and they fail. I've tried it, I failed. I think they're great for detoxing, but not to thrive on. You can't rebuild a body on vegan food.
Right. Interestingly enough, today is September 30th, and on September 1st, I started on the carnivore diet, and I started eating a bit more meat, and I started drinking raw milk from sheep, goats, and water buffalo, because I can't tolerate raw dairy, from cows. I can't tolerate cow milk, even raw. And I can't emphasize this enough, but I feel better than I ever have in my entire life. I'm always happy. My sleep is amazing and deep. I wake up earlier than I normally do every single day, and I have energy. I'm literally, it's like what you were saying, that about the omega-3 fatty acids being, an antidepressant. I wasn't depressed, but I had lower energy, and now I have amazing energy, and my mood, I feel so grounded and I feel so happy. I feel like I've come home to myself. And it's interesting because I'm craving the raw milk, which I never had before. I stopped drinking milk when I was 17, but and I'm 48, but I feel that it's feeding and nourishing my body in a way that feels magical, actually.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting how what you're saying, and I agree, because when you look at the indigenous populations all over the world, and also throughout history of humanity for millions of years, we have always had an animal-based diet.
Yeah.
And so now, in the current times we're in, for the past several decades, 100 years, we've been introducing the grains and the sugars, the carbs, starches, and the vegetable oils, like you were talking about seed oils, we've been damaging ourselves at the cellular level and damaging our guts and our immune systems through creating the leaky gut syndrome where the toxins pass through and then we create autoimmunity. So I'm looking at the notes that you and I had talked about earlier about the different topics we would talk about, but we've been talking about everything on the list. So what else do you think is really important for people to know? And also, I want you to talk whatever's on the top of your mind, because that's probably the most pertinent things. But at some point, maybe, and if it's not now, we can circle back to the vegan agenda and why we think that might be happening on the planet. But is there anything else nutritionally you want to inform people about?
Back to raw milk, basically, because Wonder Planet's story was that he was in his 20s and he was in a care home with autistic states, immobile, and practically dying. And a care worker turned up with some raw milk and raw carrot juice and said, look, try this. He tried everything else. He tried this. And within 10 days, his autistic state had shifted. And then he was able to teach himself he learned to read and write. And then he studied nutrition. And then he went down the wrong rabbit hole and he looked at veganism and vegetarianism. But then he came full circle back to meat. But yeah, I had this fear of milk because I'm lactose intolerant. And I had to make the connection myself because I would go to the doctor because my stomach would bloat and I had asthma. And I would go to the doctor and say, what's going on? And they'd say, well, you just have to put up with it. And then I made the connection that maybe it's the pasteurized milk because pasteurized milk creates mucus in the body. And then when I started studying Wonder Planets, I then looked into raw milk. But the trouble with raw milk is that I still was allergic to it. So what I've been doing is just making my own yogurt with raw milk. So I sour it. And it's the same with kefir. It's soured. It's the probiotics alter the structure of it. So that is exciting, and I'm so excited because I can have milk again, obviously in a different form. But yeah, back to the seed oils. When you heat a seed oil, it creates over 500,000 toxic compounds, free radicals. And what it does is it also begins to damage the thyroid. And the thyroid controls our metabolic rate. And we've got endemic problems with thyroid disorders. It's not just about iodine. It's about the fact that we're not feeding, because the thyroid is part of the endocrine system, we're not feeding the endocrine system with these essential fats. My daughter. So as soon as we remove the damaged seed oils and put in the raw oils, the raw fats, then the thyroid can begin to heal, and then we can increase fat burning as the thyroid starts to heal and the endocrine starts to become more balanced. Because what is happening in the agendas that I'm seeing is that modern endocrines are struggling because we're not getting the essential fats, so they're all out of balance. And so this is why we're getting these hormone disorders, we're getting infertility, and also there's, I don't know whether I should start talking about the transgender agenda, but it's worrying to see that instead of looking at trying to rectify and rebalance the system, we're going the other way and we're feeding children meds that they don't need, that are carcinogenic. And this is my worry. We need to get back to basics and start getting people back on healthy essential fats.
Yeah, it's like we've all been brainwashed by this agenda, because even I, back in 2011, attempted veganism I only lasted 2 months. It was extremely detrimental to me. I had the most dire craving for beef that actually felt to me like soul torture. It was a traumatic feeling that I had, as if my soul were screaming and crying. I've never had a feeling like that in my life, and I've been through a lot of trauma, but this was actually traumatic. And it's because our bodies have consciousness. Our cells, my cells were screaming at me and crying to tell me what I needed. And I did eat that beef, sitting in the car outside the Whole Foods, because I had gotten it when I needed it at that moment. And I knew that I could never do that to myself again. It was torture. So my body told me, and it was, like I said, only 2 months. And so I had been a vegetarian for 2 months and then consecutively switched over to veganism for 2 months. So really 4 months. But even when you're a vegetarian, if you're getting yogurt or butter or eggs, you're getting some essential nutrients, fatty acids, and other things that you need, vitamin D, vitamin K, but but that'll only take you so far. And so we need to add in the animal foods, because we need to really eat what we are. We are not plants, and we cannot convert the protein and fats from plants into what we need.
Well, it's very interesting about the plant, because plants create their own pesticides. So their own pesticide are the goitrogens, the phytates, the oxalic acids, etc. Because what happens is if we keep going and eating the plants, they're not going to thrive, because those natural pesticides bind to certain nutrients that stop us thriving. Okay, so that's their way of stopping us eating them. It's a bit slow, but that's how it works. And that is very revealing. It's just so revealing that plants don't want to be eaten. And I know vegans will say, well, animals don't want to be eaten either, but let's look at the spiritual aspect of it. I had a friend who was a vegan for many, many years. She was a vegetarian as well for many, many, many years. She's one of the most spiritual people I know. She's a spiritual counselor. She's done loads and loads of internal healing, etc. And one day, a few years ago, she kept getting these dreams about eating meat. And at this point, she was a vegan, and she kept getting these dreams, and she kept ignoring them. Kept thinking, why am I getting these dreams? And they would keep coming. The dreams keep telling her to eat meat. And she went with him one day, and she said, right, what's this all about? And she realized her higher self was guiding her to eat meat. She was going through the menopause. She was suffering from anemia. So she was being guided. She was being guided to eat what her body needed. And I've also got other friends who are vegan, and one of them I bumped into in the summer. She said she's been on a fast for 2 weeks. But all she could think about and all she was craving and that kept coming into her head was eggs. Your body doesn't lie. It's there right in front of you. You're being guided. We're being guided all the time. Why would you keep being somebody who doesn't eat eggs normally when they're on a fast? Why would they keep being guided to eat eggs?
Right.
It's all there. I've always resonated with the American Indian way of living and eating, and I know that modern man doesn't live that way at the moment, but I feel like we will go back full circle to that way of eating. And
I agree.
Getting the buffalo back on the plains again.
I agree. So, and they were some of the most spiritual people on the planet, praying and honoring the animals and all of nature, and and God. And so basically, people are saying that it's more spiritual to not kill an animal and to eat only plant foods, because that raises your vibration, it raises your spiritual level, and helps you ascend out of the earth plane. And I believe that that's actually a psyop, a psychological operation that's been propagated onto humanity to keep them weak and docile. Because if you're not feeding your brain the essential fatty acids in order to function, like you were talking about before, for the cellular communication, neurotransmitters to communicate through the brain, then people will be controllable. And right now we're seeing a massive push for veganism. So what do you think about all of that?
Well, my teacher used to say how to control a nation: dehydrate them and feed them damaged fats.
Wow.
Alcohol. In England, especially, maybe not so much in America. I know Americans they're not such alcoholics as the British. But if you go to the cinema, there could be like 5 adverts for alcohol before the film starts. It's constant brainwashing: drink alcohol, and then we're being fed the damaged fats. So that demotivates people, depresses people. People lose energy. People become fearful because the water element is part of is to do with the kidneys and the bladder and hydration, but it's also connected to the emotion fear. So when you dehydrate people, you have them in fear. And when people say, oh, well, you can't be spiritual unless you're vegan, well, the most spiritual people on earth are the indigenous cultures. So what is that saying, And I remember reading this article about, I think it was in Greenland, this whole community who obviously live sustainably. The fishermen had to go out to kill a whale because that whale would feed and sustain them for a whole winter. And whilst the fishermen were out hunting the whale, the whole community sat in prayer, thanking the whale for giving its life up to feed them. So, we talk about, this agenda of climate change. If you're vegan and you're flying foods from the other side of the world, how can that be helping the environment? The most healthiest, especially in the United Kingdom, was in the war, when people lived on butter, eggs, wild meat, food that was around them. It wasn't being flown in or shipped in because we were an island and we were bombarded. So people were eating locally wild food. This is what we need to get back to.
Wow.
I remember David Wolf. He did. I don't really want to denigrate David Wolf, but it was just when the raw food vegan movement was at its height. He hired this place in Kent near me, and people kept saying, "Oh, it was just box after box after box of avocados, that have obviously been flown in from the other side of the world."
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So in order to be vegan, you must gather from all over the world a variety of foods that are purported to complete the diet. And you're right, it's very damaging to the ecology and the environment. And also they need supplementation, which is not natural, like vitamin B12, and they would need to take ALA instead of DHA, but it's still not going to convert to any amount that's bioavailable for the body. And so the other thing is that a monocrop will, they'll have to clear entire fields and kill all of the bugs and rodents and animals that are living on that field, damaging biodiversity. And then, of course, those fields have GMOs, pesticides, and use a lot of water. And so these monocrops are damaging the environment far more than any.
I believe there's a vegan food, unless you're a fruitarian living somewhere hot in Thailand, picking fruit off trees. There's no such thing as a vegan food.
Right. And so when you have grass and
Mm.
cows are grazing or ruminants are grazing naturally, of course, factory farming is horrific and needs to
Horrid.
end.
Yeah.
But a natural environment with ruminants grazing, they're actually net negative in terms of carbon and environmental damage, because they're actually producing through the cycle soil,
Mm.
nourishing the soil, replenishing the soil,
Yeah.
developing the soil, fertilizing that soil, and helping the grass to grow. And so we can actually regreen our world with more pastured ruminants. And so people think that there's an agenda, they're lying about cows, but really it's the opposite. It's actually a big lie. And when you start to go down in reading the science about all of this, your eyes get very opened to the fact that if a person eats one cow per year,
Mm.
they're going to regreen the planet and everybody will have enough and our environment will be better. And so it's none of it that they're saying makes sense. And so they're tying climate change with eating meat when
But they're
it's
blaming cow
false.
farts. They're blaming cow farts. And yet, at the time of the American Indians, there were billions of buffalo on the plains. You know,
That's
and
right.
the irony is that a lot of the people friends of mine now, who again have been on that journey, tried veganism, tried vegetarianism, and are now eating meat and thriving. Ironically, they're helping to stop the factory farming business because they're going to locally grown places, they're choosing farms, they're finding farms where it's all grass fed. And I understand, I am an ex-vegetarian, I do understand, but it's like what certain people say, if it is the food we're meant to eat, we can't deny ourselves the primal diet if it helps us to flourish. And I think what's happened is we've become over sentimental and lost our compassion, and we just have to find a way of getting back to working with nature again and allowing animals to be freed, so that that they're not chained or treated as such in such abhorrent farms, which I think is the worst thing in the world. And
I agree.
we have to learn.
They can be part of the family. I mean, unfortunately, we're going to eat them, but they can be treated like family and loved
Yeah.
and cared for. And I mean, because they're here to nourish us, so we have to honor them, respect them,
Yes.
and have reverence and gratitude.
Yes.
And then when you do that, when you're eating a grass-fed, grass-finished, well cared for animal, and you're taking that in, I can speak from experience. It's a spiritual experience, and
Yes.
it raises your vibration. Like, I've never expected this to happen, but that's what's happened with me. And you have a brand new type of spirituality that's one with the earth, one with nature, one with the animals, accepting your true nature. We are animals. All animals on the planet eat animals. And
Yeah.
so there's actually no vegan or vegetarian animals. Even the herbivores do actually eat animals. So it's all animals eat animals. So we can't deny our nature. And that's what's happening today. People are denying their nature through a mental activity. They're becoming too mental. So they're formulating a belief about it. They've removed themselves from the heart and the soul and the innate knowing.
Yeah.
And through a mind construct,
Yeah.
they're allowing themselves to buy into the agenda that's being pushed from the top down, and they're pushing the notion of spirituality, climate change, all these different
I blame Disney. I
what
blame Disney. I once had a client in front of me who was a raw food vegan, and he was blood. And it's very interesting about blood groups as well. And I know many people have read the blood group diet, and a lot of the paleo and keto and carnivores don't relate to it because it doesn't seem to make sense. But there's certain blood groups that actually thrive on a carnivore diet. And I remember having a young guy who was suffering from schizophrenia, and he'd been having all this raw food, thinking it was gonna help him. And I said, you're gonna have to eat meat. Within a few days, he was completely grounded. Completely,
Amazing.
it grounded him. It just grounds you.
Yes, I'm type O, and I would agree with that. Type O needs meat.
Yeah, type O's have more hydrochloric acid. You're the original blood group on Earth. You're the original. So you're in essence the original hunter-gatherer. So you would only have eaten your blood type would only have eaten what you hunted and gathered. You wouldn't have grown grain. You wouldn't have eaten grain. And it's very interesting when I get blood group O's because they're more likely to suffer from IBS, celiac disease, colitis, because they weren't meant to have it. They weren't meant to have gluten, the sticky glue that's just binding them up. When they remove that stressful food and eat what them, and it's also, you know, a lot of people are suffering from acid reflux. What is that acid there for? It's sorry, okay, excited. It's for meat, to break down meat. Yeah. So if you give the body what it needs, that acid reflux will disappear. You know, it's just sorry, I'm getting quite passionate. It's common sense. It's just common sense, and humanity has just lost its common sense. It really has.
I would agree. I would agree. And you know, there's like this craze, a very popular thing going on out there with people drinking celery juice. And
Yeah.
it has been pushed by the medical medium.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, I ordered his book 2 years ago, was it? 18 months ago, because I was excited. I thought, oh my God, he's going to be like a Caroline Myss. Caroline Myss wrote Anatomy of the Spirit, which talks about the spiritual aspect of healing. And I thought, oh, he can read the body. This is exciting. I'm gonna get his book. And I think I only got a third of the way through, and then I said, I'm not reading this anymore. I actually put a picture of it on Insta, and he liked it when I first got it. But I gave it to a friend because I said, this doesn't resonate with me. This just doesn't resonate with me, because he seemed to be blaming everything on a virus, which disempowers people. Because the way I was taught, we were taught about Béchamp and Louis Pasteur. We were taught about disease, what disease really is. Dis-ease is the body not being at ease. And in Eastern philosophy, we believe that disease comes from within, whereas Western philosophy believes everything's outside of you. And he was seemed to be blaming everything on a virus, which is highly disempowering, because if everything is about a virus, then, you know, what can you do about it? I just kept thinking, this isn't resonating with my work, with my teacher's work, with what I've learned these last 20 years. And then suddenly everyone getting on celery juice without understanding how the body works when you're detoxing, that how once you put in lots and lots of raw juices, all the waste that comes out of the cells is going to go back to the liver, and then the liver can auto-intoxicate, and then you can get healing crisis. This is all Gerson. You have to, if you're on a detoxification program, cleansing the body with lots of raw juices, you have to clear the liver with enemas. You have to sweat. You have to use techniques, colonics, Epsom salt bathing. It's all part of a managed process. So when someone says, right, go away and just drink loads of celery juice, they're not understanding the whole body. And then I thought, well, how can he be reading the body?
He's not. But so doesn't that have a lot of oxalates in if you're getting that much celery juice at once?
Yeah, this is one thing that I need to research, because I'm not sure about juicing. Because before I trained with my teacher Barbara Wren, I was doing a lot of juicing, and I just felt amazing. And Von der Planets also would have a juice every day, but he would have carrot, ginger, a bit of celery, and a bit of parsley or a herb. So you'd have a green juice every day just to get the enzymes in. So I'm still not sure about juicing. All I am sure about is that juicing detoxes you, so you have to be careful and it has to be managed, because you're giving the body a spring clean. So you have to undo the plumbing, so to speak, and clear the colon, clear the liver. I've seen too many horror stories of people who've been following juicing protocols online, and then they get a healing crisis, and then they're ill and they don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still not sure about juicing. I still have a green juice every day. So I need to look into that.
Yeah. Well, and when I got his book, The Medical Medium, that title of the book is Medical Medium. In 2000, several years ago, whenever it came out, I did the celery juice thing, and I bought a $300 juicer, and I was buying, these massive quantities of celery and spending an hour, because it's a very long process of rinsing it, chopping it, putting it in the juicer, and then cleaning the juicer.
Yeah.
So let's give yourself an hour, to do this every day. Well, let's think back. Those juicers never existed.
Right.
Humanity could never gather that much juice from any plant or vegetable in the past. Yes, they could, get a barrel and stomp on those grapes and get the wine or other fruits, but could they really get that much juice out of a vegetable, without some higher technology? So we have the technology and we can do it now, but is it natural? What is it doing to our body? It's not something humanity has ever done before. And so we're overloading our bodies with these, nutrients.
That's what I always go back to. Always go back to nature.
Me too.
Always go back to how nature, indigenous cultures have thrived.
Right.
Because they always give us the answers.
That's right.
So you're right in that sense. Yeah.
And and I'm with you.
And the carnivores always say meat is food, plant is medicine.
True. And people are thriving on just meat now, and fat, from animal fat. And so it's interesting to look at all of these topics. So I would like to close, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we end?
I think probably what I began with, actually, about the emotional, looking at the emotional body as well as the physical. Modern nutritionists spent a lot of time looking at just the physical. We need to look at the emotional body as well, the emotional wounding that we either carry through or that we carry through from childhood, which the body holds on to. And this connects back to Chinese medicine, because Chinese medicine connects every organ to an emotion. So the liver is the seat of anger, the colon is the seat of grief. Well, it's connected to grief. The kidneys fear, the heart sadness. So that when a client comes to me and they're manifesting certain symptoms, so for example, they can be talking about a problem with their stomach, a symptom that they've got, and then I'll start saying, "Tell me about your mother," and then they'll start crying, and I've got the answer there.
Yes.
Because in Chinese medicine, every organ is connected to a color, a season, a time of day, an emotion, a taste. So a client can come into me wearing bright yellow, and I know they've got a mother wound, which is the earth element. It governs the mother. But the color is also to do with your skin as well. If you've got a green tinge around your eyes, the liver controls the eyes. Wood element is connected to the eye. It all connects. Everything connects. And this is the exciting thing about traditional, our foremothers' ways. We're coming full circle. and this is partly what my teacher taught, you know, these techniques that were once lost are now coming back. You know, for example, Epsom salt bathing, it's just a simple thing, but it's so powerful, because what happens with the salts is you're drawing out excess sodium we have too much of, because we've sprayed our food with it, and then we're absorbing magnesium, which we're lacking in because it's not in the soil. And it's just some simple things like that, you know. We're coming full circle. We're remembering what we nearly lost, which was burnt in the witch hunts. And it's the divine feminine, information, energy, techniques, healing. It's all coming back. But also remembering, it's not just what you eat. It's also your emotional body. Yeah.
I love that. I love your holistic approach. So people who come to you as clients can know that you're going to be looking at everything, the whole person, the coloring, the emotions, the organs, the cellular hydration, the nutrition. I love it. I'm so glad that you're doing this work. And interestingly enough, I believe that everything is happening for us. There's a purpose for everything, and that this vegan agenda that they're pushing from the top is ultimately going to wake people up to the truth of the nutrition that we need. Because whenever a person goes down the vegan route, they end up lacking nutrients and having a breakdown of their body, and find out what they truly need and start eating eggs and meat and fish and dairy again, and they thrive and they heal. And that's an awakening. That's a realization of our true nature. And so the more the pendulum swings in one direction, the more people who try veganism and realize, oh my God, we're so misguided, this is not how we're meant to be eating, and then the pendulum swings back. I think that for some of us, like you and me and a lot of other people, we already are understanding what the body truly needs, but other people still have to go through their discovery process. They still have to go down that vegan route to find out how it's going to affect their body, just like I did have to test it out for myself to truly know. Otherwise I would not have known that torturous feeling that I went through. And so a lot of people, now that I'm in the carnivore community, because I just started a month ago, a huge percentage of people doing carnivore now are ex-vegans.
Yeah.
So they're not even omnivores anymore. They're like, I know what my body needs, and it's all animal foods. And that's like almost a spiritual realization, or it is, because when we get to our true nature, that is spiritual, and we are connected, you know, and in alignment, earth, nature, us, our soul, God, it's all one. We can't separate it out. Or the further away from our divine nature we go, the more out of alignment we are. So this is that realigning, and it's a beautiful process to witness and to experience.
Yeah, I feel like we've come full circle, because once upon a time we didn't need nutritionists. We didn't need the nutritional Bible, because we just were living it. But I think modern humans have had to relearn. We've had to go down the wrong roads in order to learn and to experience. We have to, and the best way of learning, obviously, is through experience. So we've had to go full circle to realize where we've gone wrong.
Completely.
And so many friends of mine are making tallow now, you know, or they're going to a butcher's, and they've never been to a butcher. I started going to a butcher, and I've never been to a butcher's. I used to walk past in horror, and now I'm going in there and saying, well, have you got this and have you got that? And it's like it's very interesting. My 17-year-old self would be quite shocked at me, but this is the truth.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited by it. It's amazing to witness all this. Yeah.
It is. Thank you. So tell everybody one more time how to contact you and all of your information, websites, emails.
Okay. I am currently writing a book, so I'm halfway through. So I'm hoping to get that out within the next year. But in the meantime, my website is www.naturalbornhealer.co.uk, and I have a Facebook healing page, Lucy's Natural Born Healing. I'm also known as Lucy DeAngelis on Facebook, so you can message me. But if anyone wants a consultation, it's 2 hours, where I'm really looking at your medical history, your family history, every major stress since birth, and of course your diet. And then the next day I spend another 2 hours writing up their prescription, which I send over with recipes. And the most interesting thing about all this is, for years I kept thinking I don't have enough recipes. And the thing is, when you're doing this way of eating, and interestingly, my teacher used to go on about mono eating, like eating one thing at a time. She'd say, but she was always going on about brown rice, because in Chinese medicine, brown rice is the food of the colon. But I see now brown rice as more of a healing tool to use if you're having a healing crisis. It slows down cleansing. But I'm encouraging a lot of clients just to eat one thing at a time, because this is what the tribes would do. So if you're going to eat salmon, just eat salmon. You wouldn't have tribes wouldn't have peas and gravy and stuffing. They would just have salmon with a bit of butter, and just enjoy it. Slow down and just enjoy it and give thanks for it. Yeah. So
it's just amazing to me that you're saying that, because that's how I feel guided to do it. And I know, I've not talked to anybody about this, but now you're saying it, and it's exactly what I've been feeling.
But also, you're spending less money on all this, there's whole aisles I don't walk down anymore. I don't walk down the veggie aisle anymore. I go straight to the eggs, straight to the butter, straight to the yogurt or whatever I'm buying, straight to the chicken. It's.
And you don't need recipes, right?
So there's some recipes, obviously, I do send over, because I would always have some soups and crumble and a nice cake and but I kept thinking I need more recipes. But now I've just got just enough that people need to start them off with. It's all you need, like a chicken soup for the soul, and some other stuff. That's all you need. Less is more. It makes life so much easier.
I totally agree.
Just getting loads of chicken thighs, putting some herbs on, some fat, put it in the oven, and just eat chicken, and just enjoy eating chicken.
Right.
So much easier.
Yes. And what's your new book about? The book that you're not finished with yet, but what is it about?
Well, it's over halfway through. It's just basically what I've been talking about today.
Okay.
But a lot, also just looking at the emotional wounding and mentioning people like Caroline Myss, Brandon Bays, who wrote The Journey, how Brandon Bays was doing. She had a tumor. She was doing all the juicing and all the gerson and coffee enemas, but nothing shifted until she released her anger, and then she healed. And so it's just stories like that, and but it's just covering everything that I've actually said today.
Good. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for joining me today and sharing all of your knowledge and your wisdom. And it's been so much fun and so interesting.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank
Good.
you for connecting with me and asking me to do this. It's been brilliant.
Oh, good. You're so welcome. And so that's it, everybody. You know where to find Lucy, and mine is stephaniecraft.com. But we really I really wanted to highlight Lucy today because she has so much wisdom and knowledge, and which I love. And so thanks again, and enjoy your night, because you're in England.
That's right. Thank you, Stephanie. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.